Happy Wednesday, class. I hope everybody got the message that we have canceled class for March 1st. Today is March 1st, and the only thing that we were going to do with the class today was to talk about the midterm. I'm seeing the tests come in, and so far so good. And usually the midterm is one of the highest grades that people get. You'll see the assignment that gets released today, and I'll have a fact pattern in there. And essentially what you are tasked to do as a paralegal from the instruction of your supervising attorney, which is me, is to create a contract for a client. It's a small business. You can consider it a new small business that is relatively unsophisticated and is dealing with private residential homes. That's important to take into consideration because one of the things about creating a contract for a client is that it has to meet the needs of the potential clientele. Certainly we can all agree that the formalities of purchasing a home versus perhaps leasing a home, the contracts and the size of paperwork is much different. I'm sure the size of trademark documents between two large companies is much different than just a handling transaction for, we always go back to painting the door. And in fact, in this particular case, what your business does is you paint lawn designs onto various homes. And so all of your clients are residential, and you'll see the prices in there. And the prices are very small. It's not a big expense, and therefore you will probably find that the more efficient and shorter contract that you can create is going to serve your needs much more effectively. So we're not looking at for 15 pages and every single boilerplate provision that you could possibly put in there. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get some expectations for what happens if things go wrong. Who's responsible for what, and you're going to want to do it in a way that a consumer who's paying a very low amount can easily read over, not get intimidated by, and therefore you don't want to lose clients because of an overly sophisticated contract. I've seen that problem a lot just engaging in everyday life, where a contract has way too many boilerplates, way too many provisions, way too many problems, way too long to digest for a simple amount of money that's being expended. So you're going to want to definitely look at some of the boilerplate provisions. But the other thing to take note of is that this contract, you as the attorney or as the law firm, we're not going to be presenting this to one single client. We're creating a form contract where our small business owner or some of his employees, who the reason why they're hiring the law firm is because they're not lawyers, are going to want to take this to the homeowners and get the information that they need, get a signature real quick, and then get started on their way. So you're going to want to read the fact pattern closely, but keep in mind, and this is, I think, probably the hardest struggle with this type of project, is that people want to make the contract too robust. And so, the contract has essentially 3 separate sections that you're going to want to concentrate on. Section 1 is going to be where you get the information from the client of where they live and what house the painting on the lawn is being done at, and what type of lawn design that they want. Section 2 is going to include the pricing and the timing and any of those types of provisions, when it will be done. And then section 3 are going to be your boilerplate provisions. And again, this is the part where most students want to include every single boilerplate provision. And what I really want, the critical thinking skill in this particular project, is your ability to use the contract as a tool for the business owner to further his business, not restrict his business. So, you making it look good, making it look professional. Sometimes they're very just basic structured contracts that look very professional. Other ones use some color, and they use some graphics in there. They use some interesting font to kind of use it as a marketing tool for these clients. So it's going to be up to you how you choose to do that for this particular client, but make sure to keep in mind that this contract is supposed to further the business interests of this particular client and not limit them or scare clients away or otherwise render the contract unenforceable, but shy away from the huge boilerplate provisions. There's going to be some in there that you're going to want to concentrate on, and I'm not going to tell you all of them because I don't know the right answer. I've seen a lot of these, and every single one is very different, but almost every single one would be very effective for a small business owner. If I was opening a company like that, I certainly would have been proud of a lot of these contracts to be used. Some of the more important things is to make sure that you limit any type of damage, any type of expenses. If something happens to the lawn, it gets killed or something like that. So you're going to want to protect your client definitely from that regard, where they're not having to purchase a whole new entire lawn in the event that the paint kills the grass. And so the homeowner needs to understand that it's a possibility, and if that in fact happens, who's responsible for it. The second one is, if there is a potential lawsuit, you need to take into consideration where that lawsuit is going to take place, and that's those venue selection clauses that we've been talking about. So it's going to be up to you how you structure those, but definitely keep an eye on Chapter 11. Keep an eye, look at some contracts on the internet that's perfectly acceptable. See if you can find a similar industry, perhaps a painting company's contract or a general repair company's contract, roofing contracts maybe on a repair side, or aluminum siding or something of that nature. See what you can Google and see what pops up. There is no right answer with it. I will answer questions about specific clauses that you may want to consider. I will not read the contract in its entirety prior to it being submitted. You're going to want to submit those electronically by uploading them. I believe you have approximately 4 weeks because we threw spring break in there until it's time for this project to be completed. So just remember 3 sections to this contract. The first one is your identifying information. Your second one is your price, your quantity, your time for performance, and your third are going to be those boilerplate provisions, which highly encourage you to see what other types of contracts are out there on the internet that you can borrow from. The shorter it is, the better it's going to be for you to put in some type of profile resume package, because an attorney who is a hiring attorney at an actual law firm, if that's the course that you're going to choose to go, is going to want to peruse it and see that you grasp the understanding of how contracts are structured, and that you really took into consideration the needs of a particular small business owner. And that is one of the more important things, is we're dealing with a small business, unsophisticated contract with a one-time type of transaction that is a very low cost. And I don't mean to keep repeating myself on that regard, but it just becomes that important. Going over the last few semesters, and I'm reminded that you guys are in fact the last commercial transaction class it sounds like PHSC is going to have. But going after the last few semesters, I just recalled that the questions really just boil down to, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're looking for? My answer, whether we spend 15 minutes or an hour on it, is always the same, and that is, take into consideration the complexity of the transaction, the sophistication of the clients, and the need to use this as a tool for the business owner who is our client, versus something that is just as long can be and intimidating. So I'm not going to tell you it has to be 1 page. I've seen it done in 1 page very effectively. I'm not telling you it has to be 4 or 5 pages. I've seen some that are 4 or 5 pages that were substantially less effective than a 2-page contract, for example. But I'm not trying to restrict you. I know that based on everything that you've learned so far, that you'll be fine. Again, and I keep repeating myself, and that's really what I do at the lecture for this particular class. And in semesters past, we would also put in this class the taxation discussion lecture, because there just wasn't enough to fill more than 15 minutes, and I just don't want everybody to have to make that long drive for 15 minutes of discussion. But I posted my email and my cell phone number, and I also sent it out in an email. And just read the fact pattern. If there's some component of the fact pattern that is ambiguous, please by all means contact me. if you're thinking about whether a certain provision should be included, perhaps an attorney's fee provision, which may or may not be good in this particular case, send me an email and let's talk about it, or let's talk about it over the phone. I'm not going to tell you right or wrong, but we'll certainly discuss it. And I don't think we have class again till late March, and so good luck to you on your writing project. It does feel a little bit intimidating, but traditionally this is perhaps one of the highest successful grades in this class. I realize the quiz grades can be a little bit lower, but traditionally people have done very well. And I think the way that everybody's been grasping the concepts so far, I think you guys will as well. So hope to hear from you. You can call or text or email with any questions.